All right, here we go. So I wanted to post this video in regard to the 2014 California governor's race, and today is October 14th. So we're a few weeks away from Election Day, and I believe this is a very important race because of what's going on with our economy. California is an unbelievable state in terms of the potential, the economic potential, we are one of the highest unemployment states in the nation, and we have the highest poverty rate in the nation, and I think that's got to be fixed. So this is a message that comes to you from someone who has essentially abandoned the political parties. Not a Democrat, not a Republican, not a Libertarian. That's all kind of rah-rah nonsense. And so my recommendation today in terms of the way I would hope everybody votes in the gubernatorial race is based on what I think is best for California. And you're going to notice me looking down at my notes because I'm going to be somewhat long-winded here. And so my thought process is, hey, from a standpoint of kindness and friendliness and caring and a desire to lift every household in California, this is what I'm thinking. And I don't want much. I want it all. First, let's talk about the economy. Again, we have just about every industry here in California. Movies, tourism, oil. Just look at the rigs offshore, right? Agriculture, tech, Silicon Valley, manufacturing. I mean, not to mention the Pacific Ocean, which is an enormous economic machine. So, but we need to, do whatever we can, pass whatever legislation we can, so that there are plenty of jobs in California, and that's completely doable. So that people thinking about opening a business, they're going to think about California first, and that everybody that wants to have a job here in California will have a job. Now, when there's an abundance of jobs, businesses are going to be looking for workers. So there will be a high demand for workers. And when there's a high demand for workers, businesses have to compete by paying what I call a livable wage. And $9 an hour, $15 an hour, it's just not happening. The other thing is, there's too much of an incentive for businesses to want to hire people on a part-time basis. So what I'm talking about are full-time, career jobs where people can work all the overtime they want and make as much money as they want, and have benefits and on and on. I mean, what I call a livable wage is you can afford to own a home, you can afford to have a family, you can afford to put your kids through college. I mean, normal things. So that's the thing, is we need to create that kind of dynamic in our economy. And if we don't make every household in California more financially solvent or stable or affluent, how are we going to solve or improve any of the important issues we face? Because guess what? If every household in the state isn't lifted up financially, there won't be enough tax revenue to pay for the teachers, the cops and the firemen, the prison guards, etc. And so the economy is really the most important thing. And when you look at Uncle Jerry, who was first elected governor 40 years ago, and has really been probably the dominant, most powerful guy in state politics over the last 40 years. Now, there are other guys, I'm sure, that had that kind of power, but not for 40 years. He really hasn't gotten the job done. I mean, we're suffering from a drought, and I remember when I was in high school, just a couple of years ago, we were suffering from a drought. This is 1977, 78, and we still have a drought. And it's not just Uncle Jerry, but it's all the politicians. They haven't gotten the job done. So you really got to think about every incumbent politician is going to continue to fail you. You've got to vote for the guy that is saying, hey, I'm going to do the right things, and then we have to hope for the best. So that's the thing about the economy. Which candidate really has the skill set to improve the economy? And it's pretty obvious it would be Kashkari. Now, You're probably saying, hey, you're a Republican, and that's why you're thinking Kashkari. I don't even think Kashkari is a Republican. I just think he's in that slot because I didn't think Meg Whitman was a Republican. They're just in that slot because they're the opposition candidate. They got to make it look like there's an election happening, so we got to have a Republican candidate, we got to have a Democratic candidate, and it looks like Jerry Brown's going to get 70% of the vote the way it's panning out right now. And so I'm putting out this video just in the small, tiny hope that a few people will see it and agree with me and realize we got to get Jerry Brown out of there because he's definitely not going to do the things that will improve this state. How do I know that? Because look at the last 4 years. He hasn't done the right things. Listen, we have a huge drought problem, and in Jerry Brown's 40 years, what he should have done, this is pretty basic stuff. Don't need a Harvard education. This is like 5th grade math kind of level intelligence stuff here. Let's say we had double the number of reservoirs that we currently have, or triple, or quadruple. Is the bullet train going to create as many jobs as building 4 times as many reservoirs as we currently have? Right? So let's put ourselves in a position where the next time there's a drought, or if this drought really does continue to ruin us for the next 30 years, which some people are saying, let's build enough reservoirs to get ahead of the curve. It's simple. When the problem is the truck is in the ditch, and the truck that's in the ditch right now is the drought. You just say, okay, how many reservoirs do we need to build so that we never have this problem again? This is not a project that's important for today, because really it won't solve the problem today. It'll solve the problem 5 years from now after all the reservoirs are built, right? But I'm thinking of my kids. I'm really worried about my kids. I've got a 24-year-old, a 22-year-old, an 18-year-old, and a 16-year-old, right? And I want this state to be the best state ever for them. Back in my day when I was a kid and we'd go out and play in the summertime and we'd breathe the air and our lungs would ache from the air pollution, we prayed for the catalytic converter, and that came along and the air quality got a little better. I want things to be better for my kids and when they have kids, right? So the next thing is the budget. Why is California always broke? And again, think about the movie industry. It's a huge industry. Think about agriculture. Think about all the amazing industries we have here. Why are we always broke? So again, who's the guy that's been there for 40 years making sure the state was broke the whole time? Okay? In Nebraska, their state constitution says that they have to balance the budget, and they always have surpluses in their budget. I get it. Nebraska isn't California. We're a much more complex economy. But Uncle Jerry wants you to believe everything's okay because 2013 was a good year. The stock market was up, real estate came back. But we got to choose candidates at every level, right? Your city, your county, and your state legislators. They're going to change this. That are going to say, hey, let's get ahead of the curve. Let's run a budget surplus, and it's very simple to do. So. Again, is Uncle Jerry going to do this? We know from 40 years of a track record he is not going to get the job done. It's going to be status quo. And again, think about it. Should we build a bullet train? They've already spent several $billion on that. Or should we build reservoirs? And it's a pretty simple answer to that one. If you go back somewhere in the 60s, 67, 68, here in Orange County, we passed, I was too young to vote, but there was a measure passed to set aside $280 million, back when the dollar had a real value to it, to expand the monorail in Disneyland. It was going to be a public-private transportation project, and they were going to have the monorail go in a triangle around what they call the Platinum Triangle, where the Honda Center is and the Anaheim Stadium, and and they spent every penny of that almost $300 million, and they didn't turn over one shovel of dirt to expand the monorail. So do you really think a bullet train is going to do it? Are people clamoring like, oh, there aren't enough planes going up and down the state of California, it's so hard to get around the state of California, I need a bullet train? This is really ridiculous. So let's talk about the pensions. And this is really the biggest reason why you need to have Kashkari as your governor, really for the next 8 years. And you need to have other guys like him. Our state politics are dominated by the power of the unions, teachers, firefighters, prison guards, police, etc. And, for right or for wrong, we've gotten to the point where that's no longer going to work. And here's the thing. The salaries for all these positions are too high, and I'm sure you're going to hate that I've said that, and I'm a horrible person for saying that, but it's just the truth. I mean, it's fifth grade math. 1 + 1 = 2. There isn't enough money to pay A, the high salaries, and B, the high pensions. People are walking away from their job, and I don't begrudge the pensions at all. It's just the money isn't going to be there. And so they're walking away from their job making, some of the teachers that have been on the job for 30 years in this area, they get their master's degree, they're making $120,000 a year. They're going to retire with $80,000 of retirement income for the rest of their life. And so, I was a teacher at my high school, and I graduated 34 years ago. Don't tell anybody. But, he just walked away at like 60 years old. He's going to live to be 90. So he's going to collect 80 grand a year for the next 30 years. That's $2.5 million. I mean, and they're going to hire somebody to replace him. So it's sort of like you're paying double for that job. The money simply isn't there. And so this pension system's going to fail. Now, is Jerry Brown really going to fix it? Because in his State of the Union, he talked about how he made some improvements. But that's because it was a good financial year for the state. What happens in the next downturn? What happens if there's a couple of bad years in a row? The pension is already severely behind the curve, underfunded. They're investing that money way too aggressively. Those of you that are public employees, you need to get together with each other and talk to the people managing these pensions and get them out of these risky assets. In 2006 and 2007, they funded some of the worst real estate deals that, guess what, crashed in 2008 and 2009. Now, these people are so smart, they couldn't see that they were buying into the top of an overpriced real estate market? Well, I heard some people were bribed into making sure those investments were made. Who knows what happened? But again, there's going to be failure on the investment side. There's going to be an underfunding because the dollars aren't there to pay the pensions. Look at the city of Stockton right now. Okay, they're fighting to reduce the pensions of all their workers, current retirees, people that are already retired, and people that are going to retire in the future. They're all going to take a haircut. And if you look at United Airlines, when they went bankrupt, they cut the pension income of their retired pilots. I met with one of these guys by 40%. He took a 40% cut in his pension pay, and so I talked to him because he was interviewing with me. He wanted to get a job. He was looking for another source of income at 67 years old. And that's the future for you public employees with this pension, is you're going to wake up and you're going to go, oh my God, they're cutting my pension. You're going to get a $5,000 check one month. You're going to get a $3,000 check the next month. And you're going to cry foul. But it's because you elected the wrong guy again and again and again. I mean, go to Google, or not Google, you go to YouTube and look up the debate between Jerry Brown and Neil Kashkari. Jerry looks like a haggard old man, useless as anything. Now look, I love the guy. He's served his state. Gee, his dad was a governor, and he kind of fell into the family business. And, I understand it's not easy doing that job, and, hey, we should have quadrupled the number of reservoirs that we had, but we didn't, because somehow politicians can't do what? The most sensible thing? They have to do the most nonsensible thing. I don't know. So anyway, that's the thing about the pensions. The money isn't there. Okay? Look at the average return for the last 10 years and the last 20 years in that pension, and it's like 4 or 5%. I mean, just do the math. Okay? So, here's Jerry again, Uncle Jerry, involved in the highest elected office in California. He was a state attorney general, right? Governor. I mean, this if we re-elect him. 16 years as governor. Ugh. I mean, Hey, when you're just not getting the job done, kiddo, step aside. Um, what has he done? So, Neil Kashkari is a guy who the government turned to and said, "Hey, Neil, can you help us fix the economy that got completely wrecked in 2000 and 2008 crash?" And again, that was a political issue. Am I sitting here saying that Neil's going to fix the pension problem? Uh, I don't think he will. Again, once you become a politician, it's really hard to get the right things done. Now, I know how to fix the pension. I know how to make everybody walk away with 100%. I know how to do that, and it's super simple. But the unions would completely object to my solution. It's unbelievably easy, unbelievably doable, and the unions would absolutely freak out and call me the worst things in the world because it's the right thing to do. I don't think it would undermine their power, but it's a simple solve. And it's something that if I had the chance to talk to Neil about, I think he'd agree with me. And he'd probably try and do it. I guarantee you Jerry wouldn't. I guarantee if I talked to Jerry about my simple solution for the pensions, he'd say, hell no. Not only no, but hell no. Okay? So, all you public employees are being told how to vote, and you're being told to vote for Jerry Brown, and you're being told, and you're telling all your friends and family, hey, Jerry has to be the governor, or I'm going to lose my salary, I'm going to lose my pension, I'm going to lose my job. Guess what? You're going to lose it anyway. And I'm not talking about tomorrow, I'm not talking about doom and gloom, I'm talking in the next 10 years. This is going to happen. Look at what's going on in Stockton. It's happening right now. Okay? This is the initial battle over these pensions. Stockton is going to set the precedent. Stockton's saying, hey, we want out from under these pension obligations. The judge just decided last week. Yeah. CalPERS isn't almighty God. They can get out from under this stuff because ultimately it's the federal law that overrides the state law. The state law says, hey, CalPERS is king. Federal law says, nope. And that's what's going to happen. Okay? So if you want somebody in the governor chair that's going to solve this problem, I mean, this is the beginning of the avalanche, and you won't even know it's coming until you're swarmed over by it. All you public employees are going to lose your pension. Not all of it. You're going to lose like somewhere between 20 and 40%. Okay? Look, demographically, California is aging. Guess what happens? People get older. I know a lot of people, I'm 52, I know a lot of people that are 5 years older than me and older than that, and they're all thinking, I want to sell my house and retire and move to Oregon or Arizona or Colorado or somewhere where it's less expensive to live, right? Who's going to buy all these homes? A lot of my friends live in $1 million homes. Who's going to buy their homes? So all these property values are going to come down, the tax base is going to come down, the tax revenues are going to come down. Why? Because we're all getting older. When we're 60, when we're 70, when we're 80, we're not taking the extravagant vacations, we're not buying the $200,000 cars anymore, and we don't need the 4,000 square foot house. So everybody's going to be downsizing. And where is the economic volume of people to pick up that slack and pay these high prices for these homes? This is all coming in the next 5, 10 years. It's just a demographic shift that is going to take place. So if we leave the old man, Uncle Jerry, in office, basically nothing's going to happen for the next 5 years. Nothing. No improvements. And so the stuff that is getting worse and crumbling, like the CalPERS pension, is going to keep on crumbling. We need a guy in office that's going to rebuild everything, shore up the things that need to be shored up, fix the things that need to be fixed. And Uncle Jerry hasn't done that for 4 years. He's just sort of ridden the wave, right? Okay, so what else do I want to talk about here? Okay, so pick a problem, whatever it is. Immigration, right? Is Jerry making that better? No. What else? Environment? Fracking? Neil Kashkari talks about how he wants to go after the oil in the state of California. And that's a concern. To me, that's a concern. I mean, hey, this state is unbelievably beautiful. So I have fallen in love with the environment, and I don't want to see the parts of the state ripped up so we get some oil out of it. So if he's got a plan to protect the environment first and get the oil second, we need to look at it. But that's not going to solve our problems. Fracking oil out of the ground isn't going to solve our problems. If every state starts, getting after every bit of oil they have in the ground, the price of oil goes to $10, and we're not making much money off of it. Okay, so I mean, I'm not saying Neil's perfect, but I'm saying he's the guy that's saying the things that I think are the right things. Now, if he actually does them, that's, because Jerry's not saying the right things. He's just saying, I'm better than the other guy. That's all he's saying. What, because of 40 years you haven't solved the real problems of the state? You're better? Right? So, the people of California are what are going to solve all the problems. Okay? The government is the sugar in the gas tank. So, what if 40 years ago, Uncle Jerry, as a young, determined new governor, had the brass to convince the state leadership to get ahead of the curve on the drought? Right now, our agriculture would be booming, and there's so many people in the Central Valley just struggling over this. Okay? But what do we have? Several acres of agricultural land have been declared disasters, right? Stop allowing this to go on. Stop. And we've got to get a guy like Kashkari in there to solve these problems. Finally, you might want to tell me I'm a rotten, no good Republican. Like I said earlier, I don't even think Neil is a Republican, but he's the guy, to me, that looks like he'll do the right things to move this state the right direction. And so if you're cursing me, lighten up, Francis. There are no Republicans in California anymore. Okay? The bottom line is, whatever you want, whatever you expect for the government of the state of California to deliver on, it's not going to happen if our economy doesn't improve. And every household has to be lifted up financially. Somebody years ago once said, it's the economy, stupid. No kidding. We're 46th in jobs, we're 46th in education, and we have the highest poverty rate of any state. Now, does that sound like the way California should be? No. Anyway, thanks for paying attention to my blogging on. And again, this all comes from a point of me caring about my fellow man. I hope all of you out there would be blessed. And I hope you'll pull the trigger for Neil Kashkari. Thanks very much. Take care.